Yeah, so some of the challenges we've been facing with user retention and issues with users coming back to our website is that I think we have a flow problem with Hinoki. What we see is that users in Hinoki we see a lot of users want to make prompts. They want to reuse their prompts. So they come to Hinoki, create a little shortcut, and then send it off to ChatGPT. What's up, guys? So today is going to be our first day creating a build log. We're going to create a series on us trying to bring our SaaS into a successful business. We're aiming for 10K monthly recurring revenue, which seems like a lofty goal at the moment, but we're not going to stop. We're going to keep making videos every day until we reach that goal. So let's just dive into it. As you can probably see in the thumbnail and in the video title, today's topic is going to be about implementing user analytics and user metrics. Currently, we have a really basic system. We're using Vercel's analytics tool, which shows us where traffic's coming from and how many unique users we have. We also have posthog, which does additional user analytic tracking. You can add like UTM labels and things like that. But we actually really don't have an idea of how often our users are coming back. We don't have any metrics on if they're actually using our tool. We can see if they've created shortcuts. We can tell how many shortcuts. But it's a little bit difficult for us to tell, and we're running in the dark. So one of our goals is to make Hinoki useful for everybody. And we have noticed that a lot of users don't tend to return to our application, and we're not really sure why. So I think this user metric data will really help us because we can tell if users are creating shortcuts. Is it a problem with the shortcut creation? Is it a problem with using the shortcuts? Things like that. All right, so let's just dive straight into it. Let's open up Hinoki. For those of you that's never used Hinoki, this is the interface. Just a quick overview. You're able to create shortcuts over here with a create shortcut button. You open this, you type in whatever text you want to expand over here. You give your shortcut a name, and then you can save it, and the shortcuts will pop up on the bottom over here. Once you create those shortcuts, you can then either click on it or you can use the / command to pull up your shortcuts over here, and voila, you can now use your shortcuts. So that's the basics of Hinoki. I've already preloaded Hinoki with some of the things we want to do today. So the first thing is we want to have a game plan. So what's our game plan? Basically, I told Hinoki that we have a schema already for our supabase backend. We want to track user metrics. So tell us the most idiomatic and widely used way of implementing user tracking metrics. After that, we give it more context. So we want our users to be able to see how many times they've triggered a shortcut. We also want to track how many times they've used a shortcut and how many times they've sent a shortcut to ChatGPT. So that's kind of what we want. In addition, we probably want to tell ChatGPT our schema as well. So I've added our schema in a second shortcut. So to put this together, all you do is you just do the game plan, right? On the bottom over here, it shows you what the expanded text looks like. So if we put something in front of the expanded text, say hello, you can see that hello appears before your expanded text, right? So we're just going to delete hello. And we're going to, let's see, it seems to be a bug. So we got to fix that. But metric game plan over here. And then we probably just want to toss our schema on the bottom. Bam, we're done. So what this looks like is we have our game plan up top, and then we have our schema right on the bottom, right? So normally, if you type this in ChatGPT, I can actually show you. So how you use this is you can either press send to ChatGPT, but you can't really select the model at the current point. So I like to use the button right next to the main button. It opens a chat window and then copies the expanded text into your clipboard. So right now you can see I'm using O3 Mini, and my clipboard already has our expanded text. So all we do is we just press Command D, and bam, all of our information is here. And I'm sure you guys have used ChatGPT before, and you know that it's pretty big of a pain to like edit your prompt over here. So the point of Hinoki is that now you have really easy access to edit your prompt, right? Like everything is basically in this little chiplet, and it's really easy to see what you're typing, right? You can add a second schema here, right? You can do schema, and bam, now you know that you have two schemas. Whereas if we did that in ChatGPT, it would have looked like this long blob of text, right? So that's kind of the power of Hinoki. Just gonna remove that. All right, so now we have everything in our clipboard. We're just gonna send the query to ChatGPT. I'm gonna read it, and I'll get back to you on what our game plan will be. All right, so we're back. It turns out that it's a pretty cool way that we're gonna add these user metrics, and surprisingly, or not so surprisingly, it integrates really well with our existing analytics tool, posthog. So let me do a quick explanation. We're gonna go back. This supabase is also our development server. So none of this information is actually our customer information. It's just our development staging environment. So all this stuff you guys can see. I'll share with you guys. This is our schema so far. The most important thing we're looking at are the shortcuts, right? So we have an ID that's the primary key for the shortcut. We have a name, like which version the shortcut is, all this information, right? The original way I was thinking of implementing user metrics is by keeping track of the metrics inside this table. So if we take a look at the table, again, this table is our staging environment, so none of this is actual customer information. But you take a look at our table, we actually see the ID, the name, the version, all these columns, right? So originally, because of my inexperience and my experience in hardware, I assumed that we would just put the metrics in the shortcut table. In this manner, we're able to like quickly add different features, like different metrics that we want to save, like how many, like which shortcuts the last time used, all this stuff. But it turns out that that's actually not a really good practice, and it's because of separations of concern, right? So one issue is that if we do it this way, anytime we make a mistake in code for user metric gathering or saving the user metrics, it could potentially corrupt the information for the main application code. This is really bad because user metrics is not a critical application feature. It's just for us and for the user to know what they've been doing. And in no way do you want this to affect the actual code usage. Vice versa, if we have issues creating shortcuts, we aren't able to actually save these metrics, and they become intertwined. The better way to do this, and the most widely used method, is actually to save these user activities as events. So you can create a separate table. This table will contain columns for the author, and it'll contain columns for the action that the user performed. You can take those rows and then you can kind of sum them together. You can filter them, and there you can get your user metrics. So that's kind of what ChatGPT said. I think that this sounds very similar to what posthog is already doing. We're already sending events to posthog through their analytics API endpoints, right? So I think that we can actually use posthog to do this. And so I did some searching. You actually can. So it turns out in posthog, you can identify the user. I assume this is like a basic feature that I just wasn't aware of. But all you have to do is when you log in, you call posthog.identify and give it a distinct user ID. This will let posthog know that the person that's using the website right now is this person. In this case, we can then send different events to posthog. For example, once we identify the person, we should be able to, and if I can find my chat. Okay, let's see. I see. Right, so once we identify the user, we can capture different events. So we can just capture an event called user logged in, right? We can capture an event called user created a shortcut. For example, here, triggered a shortcut. User used a shortcut, or user sent to ChatGPT, right? All these things can be pretty easily done. The best part of this is I don't have to build the infrastructure for this. posthog has already done that for us. And as a 1 or 2 person developer team, we literally do not have the resources to rebuild this. So it's great that we can pay posthog to just capture all this information for us. So obviously, right now, this is giving us Node.js examples. We're using SvelteKit, so I'm going to take some time to go over my code base, try to figure out where to call posthog.identify, and come back with some updates. All right, so we're going to dive into our code base right now. I'm going to open up our cursor instance. And I already have the file that we're interested in open already. If you're interested in how to implement auth with supabase into Svelte, there's actually a really great tutorial. I pulled up the page over here. This is from the supabase documentation. It's using server-side authentication for SvelteKit. The cool thing about this is it lets us get the auth client from the front end as well as from the server-side component, which is awesome because now you can send data back to your server-side component, do some server-side processing, and send the data back. And both ends will understand which user you're talking about. So I really recommend following this guide. Now, going back in the layout.svelte, what we actually need to do is to call posthog identify inside of the layout component every time a user logs in. So I already put the code here, but let's just erase it and just try to do it from scratch. So the first thing we probably want to do is to get an event, right? So we need to check the event from the auth. So if a user logged in or if a user started a new session, we want to be able to call posthog.identify. So over here, we're just gonna do if the user signed in or if it's the user's initial session. And cursor is so smart, it just put whatever I put before back in, but okay, we'll just go from there. So okay, let's see, what did cursor do? Sometimes it gets confusing. Okay, so if the event is signed in or initial session, we're gonna call posthog.identify right over here. And what do we want to identify the user with? So first thing is that we want to identify the user with the unique identifier. Supabase already has a unique identifier per person, and it's the user's ID. So we're just going to pass the user's ID over there. This comes from the user session that Supabase provides on the auth subscription. So we can pass that in. We then can pass in any extra metadata that we want to associate with the user. So the most obvious one is the email. So you want to associate the user's email with this ID, as well as probably their name. You can get that information from the metadata. So once we have that, it's actually pretty simple. That's all we have to do. So we don't really have to implement any of the extra auth table to handle tracking user sign-ins and user authentication. This really helps because currently in our posthog, we see every unique user as just a random ID, and it changes depending on the user's browser and things like that. So we have this pretty much done. Seems like there's some syntax issue here. So I think we're missing another bracket. All right, cool. So now we can do an npm run dev and then kind of check it out. So one way we want to check this is by putting a console. And we're just going to log the event as well as, let's see. Let's log that the user signed in here. Okay, so we're just gonna check that the if statement is correct. So right now I'm just gonna sign out real quick. Gonna inspect, take a look at the console, and then we're just gonna log in over here. So once we've logged in over here, we can see that we're able to go into the if statement, and we see the initial session over here. So that's excellent. Now we can go and check our posthog to see if we actually were able to identify the user. And yeah, we can see that we logged in with hinoki.app@gmail.com right here. All right, so now that we have our login, being able to call posthog.identify, we now want to add different triggers to it. So the first one we want to do is to add metric logging when the user uses one of their shortcuts. So this one's pretty cool. Let's go into the code base real quick. When the user adds a shortcut to the editor, we actually call that we call a function inside the TipTap editor to add our shortcut into where the user is typing. So the function that we call is this command function. Inside command, if you pass it some props, it'll actually insert the shortcut where the user selected. So over here, what we need to do is just call posthog.capture. And of course, Cursor is pretty smart about it, but it actually, we need to do one thing first. We definitely need to add an import for posthog. Okay, once we added the import, we can go back here and just, hit tab because we're in 2025. So right here, what this is doing is we're capturing a event called shortcut used, which is great. We actually probably don't want to send the name of the shortcut because of user privacy. We don't really need to know the name of the shortcut. The version would be nice because there's not much user identifiable information. It'd be nice if we could know what that shortcut version is. And maybe the ID in the email would be good because we want to know who sent it. Although I think this information is provided by posthog already, so we might be able to get rid of that. And yeah, that's pretty much all we have to do. So let's just build the code again. And we're here. So we're just going to use one of the shortcuts, and then we're going to go to posthog and reload the thing. And sometimes is a small delay to posthog. So, and we see it. That's pretty awesome. So we can see that the shortcut we use is shortcut version 1, user email, and user ID, which is awesome. I think in the future, we're just going to add some additional features that lets the user themselves see the shortcut name and how many times the user has used it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I think we can explore in the future how we can visualize this information using the dashboarding of posthog. But for at least for now, this video, I think this is pretty good. So just to recap, what we went from was thinking that we'd have to write our own user metric data collection by modifying the user tables inside, like the shortcut tables inside supabase, and doing a lot of manual work. It turns out that there are a lot of third-party tools that are very useful. We already have posthog integration, so we're just using posthog integration to a fuller extent by first identifying the user by calling it by calling posthog identify inside of our layout file whenever the user logs in. And secondly, we can now capture events inside our application, which will give us some insights on how our users are using our application, and it can help us further improve our application. So thank you guys for sticking around. I hope you found this useful. I really would love to hear back from the community, see if you find Hinoki useful, and also learn things from the community. Do you guys use posthog a lot? If you do, please let me know if I'm doing this right. I know it works for now on our application, but I'm sure there are much better ways we can implement this in the future. And looking forward to continuing our build log. Hopefully I can make a video tomorrow. We're gonna keep posting videos until we get our application up to the 10K monthly recurring revenue. Honestly, that's a huge goal, but as a side project, hopefully one day we can do this full time, get some funding. But until then, we're gonna keep grinding. So thank you guys very much, and we will see you next time.